Before we start, grab something to drink and stay with me for a moment. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't another book breakdown. This is one of those rare ideas. If it lands, not in your head but somewhere deeper, it changes how you experience every single hour of your life. The anxiety in your chest, the sadness that shows up for no reason, the fear that sits there even when nothing is technically wrong, the replaying of conversations that ended years ago. This book points at the source of all of it, and then it points at the door out. So before we go in, settle in, phone down, just for the next few minutes. Because the man at the center of this story almost didn't make it to morning, and what he found in that darkness ended up changing how millions of people understand their own minds. Ready? Let's go in. It's the middle of the night. Eckhart Tolle was sitting alone in his apartment. And I don't mean sad. I don't mean going through a rough patch. I mean the kind of suffering where you look at your life and genuinely think, I cannot continue. I cannot carry this for one more day. The weight of everything he'd been holding, the failures, the betrayals, the things he wanted and never got, the version of himself he was supposed to become, all of it pressing down on him at once. And he's running through it in his head. Why did this happen to me? Why did that person betray me? Why didn't I become what I thought I would? Why did I lose what I lost? The full trial. Inside his own skull. No jury, no verdict, no end. And then, almost by accident, he says one sentence out loud. I can no longer live with myself. You hear it. I hear it. Most people would say it and move on. But this man, Eckhart Tolle, alone in his apartment at the lowest point of his life, stopped. Because something about that sentence didn't sit right. I and myself. Are those two different things? If I can no longer live with myself, then who is the I? And who is the myself? Are there two of us in here? And if there are, which one is real? He sat with that question, and something strange happened. The noise in his head went quiet. Not because the problems were solved, because his attention had shifted completely to this one question, to this one moment. He fell asleep, and when he woke up the next morning, sunlight was coming through the window. He looked around his room like he'd never seen it before. The walls, the floor, a glass of water on the table. He picked it up, took a sip, and he said it was the best sip of water he'd ever had in his life. Same apartment, same problems, waiting outside the door. But something fundamental had changed. That crack, that one question in the middle of the night became the power of now. Now let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt genuinely at peace? Not happy, not excited, not distracted by something enjoyable. Actually still. Think about it honestly. I'll tell you when it probably was. It was a moment when your mind, for whatever reason, went quiet. Maybe you were watching the sea and the sound of the waves pulled you out of your head. Maybe you were eating something slowly and you actually tasted it for once. Maybe you were in a conversation that was so real, so present, that everything else just disappeared. That moment, that specific feeling, that's what this entire book is pointing at. Tolle's central argument is this. Most of the suffering we carry, the anxiety, the sadness, the fear sitting in your chest, even when nothing is technically wrong, comes from one habit. We are almost never here. We're either living in the past, replaying conversations that ended, mourning things we lost, running the highlight reel of our regrets on a loop, or we're living in the future, catastrophizing, worrying, preparing for versions of tomorrow that exist only in our imagination. And the present, this second, the only place life is actually happening, it sits there mostly unoccupied. Here's what makes this uncomfortable. The past is a memory, which means it's a thought, not reality. The future hasn't arrived. Also just a thought. The only thing that's real, truly, physically real, is now. This breath, this room, this moment. And most of us pass through it like a waiting room on the way to somewhere else. Think about your childhood for a second. Even people who had genuinely hard childhoods, real pain, real difficulty, usually carry some warmth when they go back there. Some feeling of those were different days. Why? The child wasn't smarter, didn't have fewer problems, in many cases had less control over their life than you do right now. But a child wakes up and thinks, what am I doing today? That's the entire horizon. And inside that small horizon, complete presence, complete life. Same toy, every day, same cartoon, same friend, same street, and every single time full attention, full joy. The child isn't happy because life is easy. The child is happy because the child is here. We grew up, we gained knowledge, experience, responsibility. But somewhere in that process we stopped arriving. We're always on our way to somewhere, never quite in the room we're standing in. Now there's something in this book I want you to sit with. Tolle calls it the pain body. He says every human being carries a kind of accumulated emotional pain. Not just memories, something heavier than that. Years of unprocessed grief, old anger, disappointment, shame. And this pain doesn't just sit quietly inside you. It lives in there like a sleeping entity. And it wakes up. It wakes up when someone says the wrong thing, when a situation reminds you of an old wound, when you're tired or alone or things feel uncertain, and the moment it wakes up, it hijacks you. Suddenly you're not responding to what's in front of you. You're reacting from 10 years ago, from a version of you that got hurt and never fully healed. You felt this. Someone says something small and you react far beyond what the moment deserved. Later you think, why did I blow up like that? That wasn't even the real issue. That was the pain body talking. Tolle says the way you handle it isn't to fight it, isn't to suppress it, it's to observe it. The moment you become aware that it's been triggered, the moment you can say, I notice I'm being pulled into this pattern right now, you've already partially stepped out of it. Awareness itself is the beginning of freedom. There's another concept he builds on that's worth understanding: the ego. And he doesn't mean ego in the everyday sense of someone being arrogant. He means something more specific. The ego for Tolle is the story you carry about who you are. Your name, your history, your identity, your accumulated opinions and wounds and roles. All of it packaged together into a character called you. And the ego has one obsession. It needs to be reinforced. Constantly. It needs to be right. It needs to be recognized. It needs the future to validate it, or the past to explain it. And because the ego lives in time, in the story of before and after, it is structurally incapable of being at peace in the present. The present moment has no story. It just is. And for the ego, that's terrifying. This is why sitting quietly doing nothing, thinking nothing, feels so uncomfortable for most people. It's not laziness. It's that the ego has nothing to do in the present, no narrative to maintain, and we've been identified with that narrative for so long that silence feels like disappearing. One thing worth clarifying, because this book gets misread constantly. Tolle is not saying don't plan, don't think, don't have goals. Some people read this book and walk away thinking the message is to float through life with no direction. That's not it. He's saying do all of that, but do it now. When you plan, plan fully in this present moment of planning. When you grieve, grieve in this present moment of feeling. When you solve a problem, bring your complete attention to it right now. The difference is between visiting the past or future and living there. You can think about tomorrow, just don't move in. So what do you actually do with this? Because a book that changes how you think about consciousness is only useful if it changes how you move through a Tuesday afternoon. Here's what I'd suggest, and this comes directly from what Tolle is pointing at. Pick one activity you do every single day without thinking: washing your hands, making your morning coffee, walking from your car to wherever you're going. One small, daily, forgettable thing. And for just that activity, take everything else away. No phone, no background thinking, no planning what comes next. Just the full sensory experience of what's happening. The temperature of the water, the sound of it, the weight of the cup, the smell, the air. Don't try to feel peaceful. Don't try to have a spiritual experience. Just actually be there for those 2 minutes. Completely. What you're doing is training. You're showing your mind that it's allowed to land, that the present is safe to be in, that nothing terrible happens when you stop running through your thoughts for 60 seconds. Do it once, then twice. Build from there. That's the entry point. Small, repeatable, real. That man who sat in his apartment certain he couldn't go on, he woke up to sunlight. He looked around his room. He saw the walls, the floor, the light coming through the window. He felt the weight of his own body. He picked up a glass of water and tasted it, really tasted it, maybe for the first time. Nothing outside had changed. The problems were still there. The wounds were still there. But he was there too. Fully. For the first time in a long time, maybe the first time ever, he was completely, undeniably here. And in that presence, not in any solution, not in any achievement, not in any future moment finally arriving, he found something he hadn't felt in years. He was okay, right now, in this second, okay. That's the power of now.